Hi everyone, and welcome to another stroke analysis here. My name is Meike Babel. I'm a former top 30 pro on the WTA tour, and today we're looking at Angela's backhand. I'm really happy to work on her backhand because it's a one-hander. So let's get started right away. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to run through this here a couple of times just so that you can see your motion a couple of times. And I am going to be a little mean. I'm going to pick the one that was a little off, but those are usually the ones that clients want to have, analyzed, because that happens and they want to fix, those balls. So I'll get started with the basics first, with the fundamentals. So the first thing always is your grip, and the grip is absolutely fine. So you are in an Eastern backhand grip. From what I'm seeing here, potentially, and this is what you have to check, Angela, is that you have to come over to your top bevel ever so slightly, because I can't see 1,000% if you're really on the top bevel. It does look like it, but you may have to tweak that, but that's not the major thing. Let's continue to move through. So love that you have the left hand on the throat, helping with the unit turn here, and you see you're bringing your right shoulder back, your right hip turns, and of course you're getting your racket back. Your racket remains above your wrist, that's perfect, and you have a good take back here, and then beautifully here you're letting that racket head drop under the ball. You see that very clearly here. Ball's coming here, you have your racket down here, and then you're brushing up to contact point. And your contact point is on this one, you're catching it a little late. Could be probably a little bit further out, and you see that your racket face is open on contact. Let's look at the next one, because you're making really good contact on the next one here. Again, same thing, same preparation, and you're catching the ball somewhere around here. That's perfect. So between hip and shoulder and out in front of your center of gravity. So let's go back to the motion here. So contact is good. The follow through is good. You're staying sideways. Your hip here on the left hip, to my mind, could come around a little bit more. So it looks almost like you're forcing yourself really to stay sideways, which is good in terms of not ripping around too much, but it almost looks like you're really straining to keep that left hip back here. So let that naturally come around. And you see that here, you're stepping around. You can let that come around even more. So don't force that part to stay back because you want to stay sideways. I do like that you finish high here over your right shoulder. Tip of the racket looks into the sky, and you clearly use your left hand here to help with the balance. And you're continuing to look at the back of the ball, which is of course already long gone, but that helps you stabilize the whole motion. One other thing that I do like is you do have a lock-in position here on this one. That's the one that's potentially also a little late. The lock-in happens here when the butt cap points to the incoming ball. So you do have all the fundamentals, and this here is one of the backhands that I like a little bit more, and we will see why in a second. So what I want you to really work on are two, I think, minor things. So the one thing here is you see the space between your legs. You're very close together, and what that means to me is that there's not a whole lot of loading coming off the back leg. So you're not really striding into your shot. You almost have to lift up to every ball. So on this one here, see here how you have to almost lift up, and you have your legs pretty close together, and it's not as stable. The next thing that I'm seeing, and I'll put somebody next to you in a second, is the position of your foot. Usually I'm not as picky about that, but I think in this case, because you have all the other fundamentals in place, it does make a difference if you could step into the ball a little bit more, and instead of having the tip of your foot pointing this way, have it over a little bit more this way. You will not have the tip of your right foot pointing directly across. That's just not really happening a whole lot unless you're really having to move forward. But if you're just hitting balls from the ground here at the baseline, your energy has really nowhere to go other than up or even out here because of the position of your foot. So that would be one thing that is basically at the beginning of the motion here. You got your unit turn, and now instead of placing that foot here, I would love a longer stride in, which lowers your entire body a little bit. So you might have to experiment a little bit with getting up to the ball a little bit more, so that the ball then, as you're lowering yourself, that the ball does not come up too high and then all of a sudden forces you to hit balls around your shoulder. But this here, to my mind, is just a little too close and a little too unstable. And that makes it really difficult. And you see here that your left leg is actually stepping back instead of having planted here and then driving everything forward. So I'm actually going to put myself next to you and see if we can get a little closer to the bottom of the differences there. So let's continue. I picked one where I think you're doing a better job with being balanced and using your outside leg to drive in. So you're probably not going to see a super major drive here on my backhand because I'm just hitting regular balls. And when I took this footage here, it was more about the work of the racket really. But I think there's still a little difference to see. So you see that here, I'm moving up to the ball. So of course I want to time it so that I can still get the balls between hip and shoulder. But here is a little bit more load happening. So you really want to use your left leg to push into the ground and then step forward here. And you notice here with my foot that it's pointing to, I want to say 45 degrees, maybe to the net post or even a little further over. Whereas when we look at your backhand here, I think on this one you're doing a better job. See here, you're stepping in more. I love that angle a lot better with the foot, but this is stable to me here, right? You have a lot more stability. The lower your sink, of course, the lower your center of gravity is and the more stability you have. So that is something that I really want you to work on, to use your outside leg to push into the ground and use that to step forward and step into the ball. It's not always possible. On some higher balls, us as one-handers, you may have to drop back and let that ball come back down in your strike zone because it's really difficult to move up to the ball and then control it. If it were a higher, heavier ball, you just have to take it on the rise, right? And that is a lot more difficult to deal with. But with your athleticism, I think this here is definitely something that's replicable all the time. So you have your left leg here and stride. And that to me is also for a one-hander who doesn't have a super extreme grip. And I think here we see it a lot better that you do have your proper grip. For us, it's really more hip to waist. I want to say that we have that ball rather than continually making contact chest and shoulder high. So here on my contact point, I do have it about, I want to say chest high, and that is comfortable for me. But more importantly, there is a lot more spread here and a lot more stride. And if I played more aggressively, then definitely you would see a deeper load and more pushing into the ball. Other than that, I think really your backhand is a good shot there. This is a little bit of a better foot positioning here as well. So those are really small changes that I'm thinking should not give you as much trouble. But I would love to know what you're experiencing when you're working on that. Because I think, yeah, with your backhand, those should not be the biggest changes. And to really help with that balance and knowing that you want to step forward, you really, really, really want to exaggerate how long you hold your balance basically after you're done. See here, I'm hitting the ball here and then it's long gone, long gone, long gone, long gone. And I'm still having my body weight here on my front foot. So still on it. Now I'm releasing. So I know that you're hitting against the ball machine, it looks like here. So maybe just reduce the setting a little bit, that it doesn't shoot the balls out quite as fast, so that you have a little bit more time to really stay on that front foot. Because you see here that you're coming around and then immediately you're releasing. So see if you can just exaggerate that a little bit more right here. Stay up on your front foot, and get that longer stride in, because that should really help with your balance.